Any other questions? Yes?
I'm just curious about people that want to quit smoking, about smoking lobelia as a herb to...
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, we're going to go into that in much more detail when we get into the section on alkaloids. Because there's no question that the major alkaloid in lobelia, lobeline, will bind up the nicotine receptor sites. No question. The good news is it doesn't have to be smoked to work. You can actually take it as a tea or a capsule or a tincture and it still works. But I don't know if you've ever tasted the tea or the tincture or the acid tincture, which is the most common way or one of the best ways to do it. It kind of like tastes like an ashtray where you poured apple cider vinegar and slush it around and drink it. Oh, yummy. So the compliance level is not all that great. There have been, over the years, several Chinese tablets that have a licorice and lobelia mixture, and they're kind of a chewable thing, and the licorice kind of hides. And licorice will also help stop smoking. And they work to a degree, because they will bind up it's no different than taking nicotine gums or nicotine patches and stuff like that. You bind up the nicotine receptor sites. It's not 100% functional, but it does function to a degree. I'd like to say the most important way to stop smoking is willpower. But I realize that doesn't work. You have to use won't power, not willpower. I won't have any more cigarettes instead of I will have more cigarettes. Probably the most functional way I've ever seen is auricular therapy, or acupuncture in the ears. It's been very, very effective of stopping people smoke. And we've, over the years, had several people in the clinic do it. We don't know we have anyone who's doing it right now. We have an acupuncturist, but she usually works on deeper things than stop smoking. It works really good. Some homeopathics, and we use flower essences for it quite a bit. Hypnotism has been fairly functional in it. We do have a hypnotist that works on it once in a while. But, so I would often use the lobelia along with it. So it can be useful. But again, smoking anything is damaging to your lungs. Reason being is any kind of hot flame going into your lung that's dry is bad for your lungs. So if you wanted to smoke lobelia, you have to go to Istanbul and get yourself a water pipe or a hookah and go buddha. Just kidding. You can get them in Calgary. I'm just saying that because when I was saying smoking anything, Erska's looking at me. But I saw you smoke a hookah in Istanbul, and I did. It was great.
And quite often.
Just every day. My partner Alexandra, she didn't want to do it the first day, and she says, "You think we could find one of those places where you can smoke one of those hookahs again?" Because they taste good and they smell good, but you can put various herbs with it. So what I'm saying, if you're going to smoke anything, and it's very significant because the fastest way to get a chemical, especially an alkaloid, into your blood system is through your respiratory tract. Because if it goes through your digestive tract, it goes through all these biochemical processes and should I say shipper receivers in the liver, trying to sort them out and do what you do, but it goes through your respiratory tract, it goes straight into the capillary, it's in there right away. That's why cocaine people snort it. The only faster way is to inject it. And I'm not trying to promote any kind of drug use, including the smoking. I'm suggesting you can do it, but you don't need to smoke lobelia for it to function.
Yeah, but if you were to just do like it as a replacement instead of smoking cigarettes like 3 times a day?
It would work to a degree, but I would suggest you better to do it through some kind of water mechanism.
Yeah.
A bong, water pipe, whatever would work for you. That would be useful. But you do bring up a very good point. And the point is that at least 50% of the smoking is to create a smoke screen. Literally. Metaphorically and psychologically. So they thought by making people go outside the building they would get more people to stop smoking, but it's actually giving people an excuse to take a longer break and get away from the cohorts, the people they work with often. At the same time, a lot of people will smoke to give themselves a little pause to think before answering something, before reflecting on things. These are all phenomena around smoking that are just as significant as the smoking itself. Interestingly there's been several studies showing it's twice as hard for a female to stop smoking than a male. Meaning that smoke, the way it is extremely yang. So it almost satisfies a yang attribute in a yin person. And therefore, sometimes it's a replacement for yang in one's life. I remember a very famous man once. His name was Machu Picchu, or Michio Picchu. He was the head of the macrobiotic movement for a long, long time. And he did an article once in a very famous magazine, and he says, and in the article, he's sitting there smoking a cigarette on his picture in this health food magazine. It's going, society's the disease, cancer's the cure. I thought it was a pretty good article, but he suggested if you eat certain foods, you can balance it out with smoke. Let's face it, it's a sacred substance to some people, but most people don't smoke it in a sacred manner. I do find it's very interesting that on contact, when white people contacted North America in large numbers at least, obviously I don't want to go into the contact theory, who did it first, but the Europeans gave the First Nation people their most sacred herb, the blood of the host, alcohol. And because it was not delivered in a sacred way, it was detrimental to the First Nation people. The most sacred substance to the First Nation people is tobacco. They gave it to the Westerners and they didn't do it in a sacred way, and it's been destroying them ever since. So if you take a sacred substance and don't use it in a sacred way, its own power can be overwhelming. But, sorry I got off on a couple tangents here. Maybe I should have had supper. Really, it's also keeping your hands busy. So when a person stops smoking, I suggest they take their cigarette package or whatever container they have, empty it out, and fill it full of chewable vitamin C. Because an awful lot of it's habit. They reach for the cigarettes, they do it before they even know they've done it. And they reach for the open up, and go, but at least they put something in the oral cavity, they get the oral fixation, and now they're doing a positive affirmation. The reason I brought this up in the situation you talked about is actually smoking a positive, it's a replacement, but it's not necessarily a positive affirmation. Meaning over the last 30 some odd years of doing this kind of thing, I've watched all kinds of people use herbal substitutes for cigarettes to stop smoking. I've never seen it really work. Because sooner or later they can't get the herbal substitute and they say, wait a second, isn't tobacco a herb? Oh yeah, it is. It's amazing how humans can rationalize their pleasure systems. And that's a phenomena that we should never forget. Sometimes smoking, if smoking caused cancer, everybody would smoke would get cancer. Everyone doesn't. There's no question it's deleterious to your health, and it can cause problems, but sometimes temporarily it's solving other problems. So one would have to make a decision if they should and when they should. So, to answer your question again, yes, lobelia will bind up the receptor sites, but it's only part of the question. And I don't think actually using a cigarette to do it, a lobelia cigarette would do it, because it will just keep you perpetuating using cigarettes. You'd have to use it in some different way. And that's one of the reasons that nicotine gum and nicotine patches work, because you're using a different mechanism. So you're breaking the physical habit, but you're still satisfying the nicotine receptor sites. Get you in a second, Ernie. There's a few questions ahead of you.